have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale light?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Round up the usual suspects. I'm kind of a big deal.
Good debating, King.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, well, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
What do you say we all gather and just watch The Big Lebowski for an afternoon? That's it. We're just going to go ahead. I'll rent it. I'll pay for it, whatever it takes, and we'll just do that. An afternoon of Jeff Bridges and bowling would be perfect. Would it not? Hi once again, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Welcome in to The Man in the Arena. Thanks so much for joining us on the live Facebook and YouTube feed. Those of you listening on the podcasts will catch the recorded show. Why? Don't catch the recorded show. Catch the live show. You can find the times. All you have to do is check it out. It's right there, Facebook and YouTube. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be going to Periscope very soon, which means I have no clue who actually watches anything on Periscope these days, but I'm told it's part of the whole Twitter sphere. So I've got to make sure and get on it because, hell, if it's social media, we got to be sure to be there. We have a long way to go and a short time to get there. Hope everybody is well. Had a good Monday. I hope everybody is healthy. Couple of quick things. First of all, we are going to continue from last week. And again, I'm going to continue to say we, even though it's just me and a few other people. It's not like it's this 20, 30-person staff. We'd like you to believe that because then we could probably still convince Tommy Bahama to go ahead and sponsor the show, underwrite the show, and give everybody that appears on the show free Tommy Bahamas. I'm going to continue. It won't stop. Why not? It's America. We can do that. This is a Tommy. It's not a tropical Tommy. But if we can do that, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. But a note, we, which counts for more than one person. Later on this week, we're going to continue Wednesday here on The Man in the Arena. Larry Bluestein, our prep sports expert, will join us. We're trying to make that a regular thing because high school sports is so huge. But then again, Larry and I have a lot more to talk about than just high school sports. He has got some really harsh critiques, if you will, this week. Thursday, Randy Gordon, the former New York State Athletic Commissioner. Now he hosts a show with Jerry Cooney on boxing on Sirius XM. He will be here on Thursday. We will continue to talk about boxing and other things which are likely going to be very New York and Northeastern oriented. Why? Because we can. No, because Randy lives up there and he's an old friend. And when we talked about Hawaiian shirts last week, Major League Baseball Hawaiian shirts, got a huge response. So I figure we'll go ahead and do it again. I'll probably have to bring in some of the other Hawaiian shirts, but still, for god-awful, and I took it out of our system for today. I still should have it. God-awful Boston Red Sox Hawaiian shirt, the worst ever. Although I think my friend Rona might have sent me a Houston Astros shirt, which I've got to go back and look at, and I think that pretty much might be the worst simply because of the colors. But Randy will be here on Thursday, and then on Friday, the man, the myth, the legend, the smartest man in the room, as I like to call him, Joe Casal will be here, and God only knows what we're going to get into, but undoubtedly, Joe and I we started out doing, in a show called The Press Box, we used to do like 10-minute segments, and it was never enough time. Then I had another radio show, and we did maybe 15-minute segments. In doing this show, simply because it is OTT, which for those who don't know is called Over the Top, which is what YouTube and Facebook broadcasting is and all the rest of it is because it's not on cable. I thought to myself, how about a 1-hour show? Okay, well, a 1-hour show sounds good. Joe and I last week did almost an hour and a half, and the viewership went way up. People just, like when Joe and I get together, it's Katie by the door, and goodness only knows what's going to happen. So Joe will be here on Friday. Right here at the beginning, let me welcome in Anthony, James, Kevin, Jeff, Phil. My buddy Phil is here. Glenn Wiley is here. Roger. Reka, it is a pleasure to see you. It is wonderful. I hope your family is doing well. We have not talked in a while, and we should. Richard's here. Charles is here. So many others are stopping in. But, of course, to you people listening on the podcast, this means nothing. You go, who the hell are those people? Because I'm listening on a recorded show, and they're not really here. Well, they are here now as we do this. Okay, so before we get started on the serious stuff, a couple of things which, just for giggles and grins' sake here, did you ever notice that we don't know our neighbors enough? And I find myself being very guilty of this. How many of you out there actually know your neighbors? Whether it's in an apartment next door, a townhouse next door, whether it's in the house next door. Do you really know them? The ones across, have you ever stopped and talked to them? Because sometimes it's just the nice thing to do. People who know me know that every single morning I do the same routine. I'm up at a certain time. I take my kids out, my dogs, Magnus and Bailey. I take them out for a quick tinkle. It's YouTube and Facebook. It's podcast. We can say tinkle. No, I won't do that. There are ladies here. I'll be nice. But take a tinkle. I bring them back in. I feed them. And then I take them right out again. And they know it's time to go. I go out the front door this morning, and my next-door neighbor is out, and I had just not more than 5 minutes earlier, I had seen her with their new dog, which is a dog that will turn into about a 300-pound behemoth. And I can't remember the name of it. It's an Italian dog, very expensive. They're like about $3,000 a piece. And the little dog's name is Bella. Yeah, little. Bella started out like this. Bella's now like this. My L count is 65 pounds. Bella is going to eat my L count for an appetizer. He'll be a canapé one day when this dog gets bigger. But the dog is cute. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. The dog's getting so much better. I go out the door with my dogs, and she's yelling, Bella. Anybody who's an animal lover or an animal enthusiast or has pets, you know exactly what happens. When you see an owner out there yelling a dog's name, the dog has escaped, gotten loose. What happened? Bella loose, yes. I take the kids inside, I drop their leashes, I grab my phone, and I'm out. I'm gone. I am flat out running this neighborhood. I'm going out to the street. I'm going out to the lakes. I'm going out everywhere I can yelling Bella's name. Because to me, there's nothing worse than when your dog, your cat, especially your dog, cats do, because cats are independent. Cats go anywhere. Cats are the kind of people who go, I'm okay. Leave me alone. I'll be fine, dude. I'm going out looking for rats and mice. But see, dogs want to go out and play. They're gone. So I spent about 20 minutes looking, and I came back, I knocked on her door, and it turned out that Bella had gotten out the back door and then come back in the door, so she was in the house when they were calling her. Okay, no big deal. She was really nice. She thanked me a lot, and we realized at that point that we don't have each other's phone numbers. So we swapped phone numbers, because I said, look, I'm your neighbor. She says, thank you. I said, no, it's no big deal. I would expect anybody to do the same. If anything happens in my neighborhood, I'm out. I'm trying to help somebody. I know there's a lot of you out there who would do it as well if it was your dog or somebody else's dog. But it was the fact that we've been here for a while, and I knew her name. I talked to her several times. I know her husband's name. Her kid's a Boston Bruins fan, so automatically I like the whole family. Right? I mean, come on. So, but we realized we didn't have each other's phone number, and we swapped phone numbers. Because if something happens, I can call her. I said, look, call me anytime if something's wrong at the house. But we don't get to know our neighbors enough, and I think that's a big problem with what's happening in America right now. We don't know the people around us. Maybe if we did, we'd be a little less ready to just piss all over people. I said the word anyway. We'd be a little bit less ready to do that because we know each other. Try that for a while, okay? Second thing, I go to BJ's today because they have a very specific, they've got, certain stuff you get at all these package stores. And this is a real quick story. But it once again was part of what's wrong with America, which is part of what we're going to talk about here today. Yes, I know. But we're going to look for solutions, okay? It's not going to be a scream session. I don't do that. But I'm standing there in the self-serve line, and a woman comes in and she says, do you have Lysol? She's asking the woman next to me, who's maybe about 10 feet behind me, who works there. She says, no, we don't have any Lysol. We are probably going to get a truck maybe tomorrow. I saw just yesterday on CNN that places are running out of Lysol. And the woman who came in said to her, and careful now because I don't like to do this too often, but I'll be honest about it because it's worth it in saying it. It has to be said out loud. Here's a woman who is a patron of the store, has never met this other woman who works there. Never met her before. And the woman's being real nice. She's trying to help her. And she said, well, on CNN, I heard that a lot of places are running out of Lysol. The woman who had just come in said to her, what do you watch that fucking shit for? Huh? What are you? A fucking liberal? Turns and walks out. God is my witness. That was the exchange. She's just trying to help. And this woman snaps at her, curses at her, walks out of the store, and I look over at the woman who works she's just like, huh? You can tell, you can't see she's got the mask on, you can't see, but you know her mouth is open because at this point, she's just going, what is wrong with these people? But that was the reaction when she's trying to help somebody because of the evil that's around right now, only because of what television station you watch. Number 3, before we move on to the real heavy stuff. Hello, Rand. Hello, Joe. Hello, Mark. Keith, my buddy. Anthony, James. I see you all there. This is personal, and this is a crushing emotional moment for me that I want to share with everybody, because I know that at certain times we all have those moments in our life when we find ourselves unhappy, when we find ourselves needing a little help from friends, and I wanted to make sure that I shared this with you. I lost a good friend this weekend who has been with me for a very, very, very long time. We have shared tremendous good times together. We have partied together. We have listened to music. We've done so many things together that as my friend expired, I just lost it. My iPod is dead. My iPod is gone. And I know this because when you turn on the iPod and you wait a little while, the iPod lets you know that it's all over. It's all over. We've been friends a long time. 160 gigs of music. I have it saved somewhere else. Hold on. I get so emotional at times like these that it's difficult to compose myself, but yeah. Lost my buddy the iPod. The big red X came up. Was all over. So it's time to move on with life, as we all do. They don't make the 160s anymore. So I certainly hope that you all are going to join me in feeling absolutely terrible as we move forward. All right. Let's go ahead and get to it, because we got a few things to get to here. First of all, let's turn to sports. I'm just a wreck. I can't put it together all of a sudden. Grown man cries, tape at 11. There's no such thing as tape anymore. It's all on digital. So now everybody knows what to get me for Christmas. Just in case. I need a new one. And they only sell them used because Apple doesn't make them anymore. So there you go. Let's get on to the... Are you people not upset? I haven't gotten one on Facebook through that whole diatribe, that whole thing. Not one teary-eyed. Not one emoji shedding a tear. Are you people heartless? Are you... Now I get likes. I get spitloads of likes, but no tears. You people are heartless. That's it. I'm out of here. Show's over. No, okay, let's go. Let's start with some sports, shall we? Because we have to get to Tucker Carlson is going to be a little bit later on in the show, and also Gabe Kapler and the San Francisco Giants and the kneeling, which we'll get to. But I thought we'd get this out of the way right now from a sports perspective, because the National Football League has announced that they are no longer, or at least not this season, going to have any preseason games. They were down to, it was 4, and then it was 3, and then it was 2, and then it was 1. But now they've decided no more preseason games. Let's start this out by letting you hear from Mike Florio and Chris Sims on NBC Sports. Because I know, see, the problem with it is when you've been covering sports a long, long time, you kind of get to know too much and you know too many people and you know what happens behind the scenes. Mike Florio's a very smart guy. Mike Florio knows where a lot of bodies are buried, and he's not afraid to say it many times. But when he and Chris Sims went off on this little diatribe, I truly, it was a facepalm when it was all over. Listen up, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Man, have we seen the NFL systematically cave on this. And it's significant because it's rare, right? It was a couple of weeks ago that the NFL decided on its own to slash the preseason from 4 games to 2. The players said, no, how about none? How about no preseason games? Even though the NFL has the power to determine the number of preseason games, can't be more than 4, can be as few as the NFL wants. So the NFL went from 2 recently down to 1. I was told last week by somebody on the league side of the equation that it's very likely there will be 1 preseason game. Well, again, the NFL underestimated what the NFLPA's resolve was going to be on this, and ultimately, NFL says will not do any preseason games.
Yeah.
And the NFLPA spokesman, George Atala, kind of pushed back last night against the perception that the NFL offered or conceded to have no preseason games. I mean, basically, the union's position is they have the power to determine the number of preseason games, and they finally realized, again, it's the smart thing to do. It's the right thing to do. There's no upside from having the risk of moving guys around from wherever they're going to be between now and the start of the regular season. There's no revenue to be captured from it. Let's just not do it at all. And I was amazed that the NFL gave in on this issue after digging in their heels for as long as they did, Chris.
Well, I mean, you're right. You don't see them cave on anything, really. And especially when they do cave, you don't see it, right? And I don't want to say cave, but, when they do, adhere or concede to what the players want, right? It's shocking, and especially at the pace of the way this happened. You're right. I thought the owners were going to try to force feed this whole preseason thing and really, give the players a hard time. But I think the point you make is it's one of the first times really in NFL history the players have ultimate power here.
Oh, come on, Chris. Stop kissing Mike's ass, will you please? First of all, when somebody says the phrase 3 times within a 10-second span, I know immediately that they don't have an original thought in their head. I don't know Chris Sims, but come on, Chris, you can do better than that. Second of all, Mike Florio saying the NFL caved. The NFL owners don't give a damn about the players. All they want is the games. They wanted preseason games in themselves are the single greatest example of extortion in professional sports. Period. End of story. Walk away. And not too far behind it are other sports. You as the fan are forced to pay full price to go see what amounts to practice games, exhibition games. You've got to pay the full boat to go see it. And the owners, matter of fact, they stick that in your ticket package. Because you and I both know, and everybody can raise up a hand and tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, because at least when I last knew this was the fact, that when you bought season tickets, you had to buy the season ticket package with it at full price. Now, there are some teams that are trying to give it a couple of bucks off here, but it's a waste of money. Exhibition games are useless. I've known NFL players for more than 30 years. Every NFL player I've ever known who's worth his sand will tell you that they can do more in a scrimmage, they can do more in workouts than they can do in a meaningless exhibition game, because the players constantly rotating in and out are not the main players you're going to see, and they're not the best players. And coaches will even tell you that many times they can get a better idea of what a player can do by watching him in practice, in a scrimmage, in moments and in controlled situations that they can tell what they do. Mike Florio, this whole cave nonsense, caving to the players. You're damn right the players have power. And the NFL players should have a lot more power, as a matter of fact, because I'll tell you what, just maybe if the NFL players had more power, we wouldn't have a league that continued to look sideways every single time CTE or any kind of brain injuries come up, which they've been doing now for decades. Basically doing nothing more than pretending that they are protecting the players by putting in brand new helmets with brand new shock absorber systems. Bovine excrement is exactly what that is, because that comes down to a spine injury. That's a brain injury. That's called a concussion. That means that brain cells die. And the National Football League knows it, and they've been hiding it for how many years? How many players do you want to go back over the last 10 years, 15 years who've died of CTE? Who've had that part of their autopsy when they found that they died with brain injuries? The owners don't give a damn. They're in it for the money is all they are. So to be able to say that the owners caved, the owners didn't cave. The owners made the only decision they could because the players have power. And I'm thrilled to see National Football League players with a tremendous amount of power wield it, make it happen, change the game, make it safer, make sure some of this money doesn't walk into the pockets of people like, I don't know, let's just throw a few out there, Danny Snyder and some of the other reprehensible clowns that own professional NFL teams, and then let's move to professional sports. But make that my diatribe for the day. Mike Florio saying that the owners caved? They made the only choice they could, because the players would basically be smart and say, that's it, we're taking our football in our bodies and we're going home. And not only that, but here they are doing it in the middle of a pandemic, when we still have people dying across America, people getting injured by COVID-19, the virus insidiously getting involved in the lives of people, changing lives forever. And the players, meantime, are standing up and going, maybe it's time for us to think once, twice, three times maybe, and make a change here. Make the owners go ahead and stand up and prove exactly who is in charge. We're in charge. The players need to be in charge of their health because the players know better than anybody else. And the players are the ones that put the money in the pocket of these greedy owners. Not all of them. Not all of them. Some of them are actually pretty good owners. Not many. But at the end of the day, they want those preseason games because it sells tickets, it puts butts in the seats, it gets the concession stands rolling, it makes more money. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot, but it makes enough. So the only thing that I would say in all this, and again, I respect Mike Florio. I don't know Chris Sims. I would just ask Mike, stop sucking up and be real here. Balance it, if you will. Tell us what happened, but balance it too by talking about the players. Because you can tell right there that Sims as well, who should know better, there's Sims and Florio basically being anti-player. That annoys the hell out of me. Be pro-player for a change. And maybe save a couple of lives. Water break. See, I can't play music in the middle of all this because that's ASCAP BMI rules, which my good musician buddy Dana Paul, who's watching the show, would know immediately. As soon as I had anybody on as a guest and played their music, I get a $10,000 bill from ASCAP BMI for illegally playing the music. And I ain't going to do that. Not today. Let's go ahead and do this while we're sitting here. If you want to get involved, I'll open up the phone lines. 786-600-1733. 786-600-1733. If you would like to join us. Again, if we're in the middle of doing something, don't worry about it. You may have to call back, but that's okay. Let's move on. What happened in Major League Baseball in the last 24 hours is part and parcel what is wrong with America. And I say that because one of the things that I have to break myself of doing, and I haven't done it yet, I really need to. This is a bad habit. I need to stop getting involved in conversations around Facebook and Twitter. Because while I pull back a lot, and I don't post nearly as much as I used to, and I sure as hell try not to be political anymore because it doesn't get you anywhere, which unfortunately we'll walk into this conversation here sooner or later. I get involved in conversations, and a lot of time when I get involved in the conversations, it turns bad because I admit I find the people that are involved in conversations where I know I know they're wrong, I can prove they're wrong, and I want to make sure that they know that they're wrong. That's a fault, and I do have to stop that. If anybody catches me doing that, do me a favor, send me an instant message, or one of the EMs, whatever it is, IM, and tell me, Ed, you need to back off and go have a cocktail. That'd be even better. But this is one of the issues that strikes a chord because it shows how far we still have to come as a nation, and not only in sports, but in basic life as well. Major League Baseball is playing exhibition games, and the San Francisco Giants are one of those teams, as all are, playing exhibitions. The players took a knee at the National Anthem. And Gabe Kapler, their manager, used to be with the Boston Red Sox. I got to know him there. Great guy. And honestly, I always knew that he'd be a manager. He's got that kind of a mind for it. Gabe Kapler, not Gabe Kaplan, Gabe Kapler, decided to kneel with his players. The furor erupts. Now, what you're hearing is the post-game press conference with the media, who is now calling in because they don't have it in the same room anymore. So for those of you watching, you'll see that Kapler is alone in basically a nothing room, and other people are calling him with questions. And he gave a very detailed answer to why he kneeled with his players. Here's what Gabe had to say after the game.
I'll start by saying that we've had a lot of conversations about the anthem over the course of the last 72 hours. And when I say we, I mean our coaching staff and our players. We connected with small groups of players. We connected with players individually, and had meaningful conversations about this topic. In addition, I think many of us reached out to people in other organizations and had a feel for how we could help amplify the voices of the Black community and other marginalized communities. And I spoke to the group today, and I gave them essentially two messages. The first message was that our coaching staff and our organization would support any statement that they wanted to make. If they kneeled for the anthem, we would support that. If they stood for the anthem, we would support that too. And we wouldn't pass judgment on them for making any statement or standing up for what they believe in or expressing themselves. And the second message I wanted to share was that, what my plans were. And I did that because I wanted them to know that I wasn't pleased with the way our country has handled police brutality. And I told them that I wanted to amplify their voices, and I wanted to amplify the voice of the Black community and marginalized communities as well. And so I told them that I wanted to use my platform to demonstrate my dissatisfaction with the way we've handled racism in our country. I wanted to demonstrate my dissatisfaction with our clear systemic racism in our country. And I wanted them to know that they got to make their own decisions, and we would respect and support those decisions.
A powerful statement from Gabe Kapler after the game. And those of you watching on YouTube and Facebook, either live or on the recorded versions, you'll note the picture that was there from the game where some players were kneeling, some players were standing, and coaches as well. And the organization said, we will back you no matter what you want to do because we are behind you in your feeling towards social issues in America. That clip was taken from YouTube. It was put up by a local television station, ABC 10. And underneath the video, again, of course, most videos have a comment section. These are some of the comments that were left right on the minute that I took that video and recorded it for our purposes here. And thanks again to courtesy to ABC 10 for allowing us to do that, and the San Francisco Giants. These are some of the comments. These are just a few. From Have a Nice Dave, what a bunch of cowards bowing down to the mob. From PJ Kearns, Hope all Major League Sports collapses. I will not watch or spend another dime. All my baseball apparel goes in the fire pit today. What a national disgrace. From R. Cuvo. Of course, none of these names are real. Hey, manager, when you kneeled in front of your teammates, did they put their hands on your head, and did you... Basically what he's talking about in this, and you can read it if you will, but I'm not going to repeat it because, quite frankly, even I don't say some of these things out loud. Basically indicating that there was a sex act going on the sideline, on the field. And from Child of the Light, what a nice person. It is racist to kneel for the flag. Respect the flag and the people who gave their lives for our freedom. That's just a few comments. And I could have gone on, and there were dozens more, hundreds more. This gets into a conversation that I had with somebody. And again, this is part of I get involved in other conversations. Some I will get involved in. I don't give a damn because they need to be talked about. When there was somebody who talked about the fact that you need to stand for the national anthem, I came right back in and I said, and the whole issue was just that, the people who fought for our freedoms. I said, is not the freedom that people fought for, men and women fought for, the freedom to express yourselves in this manner? A freedom of speech, a freedom to be able to let people know how you feel. That's what they fought for, and that's what these people are doing, in essence. So as I got involved in it, I wanted to bring to you, and for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm going to read it so that you can hear this entire thing. This was a similar conversation that was had on a Facebook page that talks about the New York Giants and the New York Jets. And it was that initial comment made, which was, how dare these people kneel? They need to stand. They should be put in jail because people fought for freedom, and that freedom is the flag, and that flag means that you stand. I came back. It remains astounding and head-shaking how many people refuse to understand that kneeling for the anthem has absolutely nothing, big cap letters, to do with disrespect for the flag, disrespect for the military, or a hatred of America. Anyone who believes that is nothing more than a mindless Trump zombie, good riddance. I probably should have laid back a little bit, but I try to be as nice as I can in these situations. Almost right away comes back an answer from Carolyn Ganska. And by the way, I put names out here because if you're going to do it on a public page, I believe that you stand for your statements. You're making a statement, so I'm going to give you full credit. From Carolyn Ganska, Ed Berliner. So, question, why kneel for the flag? Why change things that have been going on for centuries? We have been standing for the flag in putting our right hands over our hearts since Betsy Ross first made the flag. Why change N now? It's terrible when I have to go back and forth on grammar because I am a member of the grammar police. I am the guy who in every office will stand behind you and will stop you when you use improper grammar or can't spell. If I did that, I'd have a full-time job. Somebody hire me for that. That's a 7-figure position when it comes to social media. Okay, so Carolyn had her moment, so I answered back. It's not a matter of change, rather of personal preference and ideals. There is nothing in the flag code that says kneeling is wrong. It is actually quite respectful. It is, and from the beginning, used as a tool, bringing attention to the rampant level of police violence against Black Americans and other minorities, which is unquestionable. It is quiet, dignified, and peaceful. And this is what I think people need to hear more often. If America is truly the land of the free, and not only for a certain few, then using its symbols to protest injustice should be applauded, not denigrated. There was no outcry until Trump shot off his mouth with more lies and mischaracterizations the easily duped fell for. By the way, there is not one shred of official documentation that Betsy Ross created the first flag. I know. Why'd you do it, Ed? Because it's true. There's a lot of apocryphal stories and a lot of fifth-hand stories that go around about Betsy Ross. Look it up. Go ahead. I admire people who do that. But none of this started until it was made a political issue. And now it's become an issue of hate and fear and violence and the kind of evil that we see written. So that's what I wrote. Darren Scollins came in on this and wrote back to Carolyn Ganska, because the Democrats want to try to take away our history. We need to stand up and protest. Trump 2020, all lives matter. I answered back, out trot the zombies. You see? But there it is. You can try to stay away from it all you want, but it is a political issue. It was made political by the President of the United States. And that's what people like this are going back to. They're making it political. It's not. It is in the essence of a social desire for people to say something. And it is not denigrating a flag or an anthem or the military. Nonsense. My dad was in the military, and I love him for it, and I'm proud of him. Lady Shannon's father was in the military and served proudly in Vietnam. I honor him. I'm proud of him. And every other individual that I know that has ever served in the military and those who gave their lives for what we have, I salute them and I thank them from the bottom of my heart. But the freedoms they fought for are the freedoms that are allowing people to kneel for an anthem and not feel as if they have to be denigrated or made to be the butt of hatred. That's the point. One other note on this from the Facebook pages. Charles Whitley comes back again. To Darren Scollins, your history is that of racism and terrorism. That's what you're all about. That fool you love is going down. Then y'all can go back and understand the slimy rock you came from. Changes is needed, so get the out of the way. To Sean Michael C. Ramirez, I don't pledge allegiance to a flag that doesn't stand for anything but racism and systematic racism. Never will. Okay, everybody back up a minute. There are many people in this country who will tell you that despite the fact that the United States is a free country and is, in many ways, one of the greatest countries in the world, that it was founded on racist beliefs, that it was founded partially due to slavery, to making second-class, third-class, fourth-class citizens of women, to denigrating people of other races and creeds and faiths when they came to America, how Catholics, how the Irish, nobody talks about how in New York City the Irish were pretty much looked upon as rats and were basically used as cannon fodder and target practice by the law enforcement of the era. I mean, if you want to go back and see what is a fanciful discussion of that, go watch Gangs of New York with Daniel Day-Lewis. Yes, I know, it's a movie. And about half of it is Hollywood. But then go back and research what happened in New York City at that point. America is built on so many things that have happened to so many people that are reprehensible and regrettable. We want to regret it. We want to be able to say, let us move forward. Let us stop. Let us try to make things better. Let us try to actually take the ideals of what this country is founded on, and let's move forward with that. That's what we should be looking for. Instead of going back and making this an evil discussion of vile hate and nothing more than verbal excrement being thrown at each other. Because in many ways, if you say America was founded on racism and systemic racism, you got a point. Go back and look at the history. And frankly, I've said this many times. I wouldn't mind if somebody tells me that I'm wrong and that that's not the case. But let's look at the facts of where we've been. And that's why this whole argument has risen to this point. People think that if you kneel for the anthem, you don't love your country. That's not true. I know a lot of people who do. I know high school kids who've knelt for the anthem, and their parents have been behind them. I know veterans, military veterans, many of them I've spoken with, who say, Ed, I have no problem if somebody kneels for the anthem because I fought for the right for them to do it. And if that's how they choose to use their freedom, their God-given and United States freedom, that's for them. Because they are allowed that freedom of speech, if you will, to be able to say something if they want. So instead of instead of hammering each other, let's try to understand where we came from and where we need to go. That, to me, would seem to be a much more intelligent way for us to get America back on a track to perhaps one day again being great. Because let's face it, I've said this on my Facebook page. I go back, and this was said in the first episode of The Newsroom, created by Aaron Sorkin on HBO. Go back and look at it. Where the title character says America's not great, is not the greatest country in the world. There's something to be said for that. We need to be, we should be, we can be, every single day. And we should strive for it. But it's arguments like this that are keeping us from once again becoming great and understanding that there is a problem in this country and only we can address it. Won't go away by itself. There's no magic here. You don't bring Penn and Teller on stage and it disappears. But we're the ones who have to make the change. I will try and stay out of Facebook discourses, if you will. Finally today, as promised, Tucker Carlson is the highest-rated talk show on cable television on Fox. It goes back and forth, but pretty much between Tucker and Hannity, Fox has got the ratings. There's no two ways about it. Tucker Carlson had to take an unplanned vacation recently because one of his head writers had to resign when he started a post on, and I'm making sure of my notes here, had to resign because he was making misogynistic and racist messages on another social media outlet under an assumed name. CNN caught him. Fox then caught him, and he was forced to resign. He's the head writer for the Tucker Carlson show. So Carlson had to take a week off. And he came back, and on Monday night, the 20th, Carlson gave this statement to his audience, which I am running unedited, because to be fair, if we are going to talk about something, don't edit, don't hide it, let it get out there. But Tucker Carlson has decided that the New York Times is, in effect, seeking to break the law by coming after him. Here's Carlson on his show.
Since this show began almost 4 years ago, I've really tried not to talk about myself on the air or even use the first-person pronoun. The last thing this country needs is more narcissism. It's not very interesting anyway. People who use the word I a lot tend to bore everyone but themselves. But tonight we're going to make an exception to that rule. We don't have much choice. Last week, the New York Times began working on a story about where my family and I live. As a matter of journalism, there is no conceivable justification for a story like that. The paper is not alleging we've done anything wrong, and we haven't. We pay our taxes, we like our neighbors, we've never had a dispute with anyone. So why is the New York Times doing a story on the location of my family's house? Well, you know why. To hurt us. To injure my wife and kids so that I will shut up and stop disagreeing with them. They believe in force. We've learned that. 2 years ago, a left-wing journalist publicized our home address in Washington. A group of screaming Antifa lunatics showed up while I was at work. They vandalized our home. They threatened my wife. She called 911 while hiding in a closet. A few weeks later, they showed up again at our house. For the next year, they sent letters to our home threatening to kill us. We tried to ignore it. It felt cowardly to sell our home and leave. We'd raised our kids there in the neighborhood, and we loved it. But in the end, that's what we did. We have 4 children. It just wasn't worth it. But the New York Times followed us. The paper has assigned a political activist called Murray Carpenter to write a story about where we are now. They've hired a photographer called Tristan Spinsky to take pictures. Their story about where we live is slated to run in the paper this week. Editors there know exactly what will happen to my family when it does run. I called them today and I told them, but they didn't care. They hate my politics. They want this show off the air. If one of my children gets hurt because of a story they wrote, they won't consider it collateral damage. They know it's the whole point of the exercise, to inflict pain on our family, to terrorize us, to control what we say. That's the kind of people they are. They'll deny this, of course. They'll claim it's just journalism, just the facts. Really? So how would Murray Carpenter and his photographer Tristan Spinsky feel if we told you where they live, if we put pictures of their homes on the air? What if we publicize the home address of every one of the soulless robot editors at the New York Times who assigned and managed this incitement to violence against my family? What about the media editor, Jim Windolf? We could do that. We know who they are. Would that qualify as journalism? We doubt they'd consider it journalism. They'd call it criminal behavior if we did it. And that tells you everything.
So Tucker Carlson is basically saying that the New York Times, he is alleging that they are guilty of criminal behavior, and they were looking to find his house, print the address to his house, and thus bring individuals that might hurt his family. Look, let's get something out of the way right now, and let's just say this. I don't care about your politics. I really don't. You don't go after families. You don't go after wives, children, husbands. I mean, it's despicable to do that. If you're writing a story, if you're going after someone, if you're writing it about something that's happening and you want the individual to be mentioned, and that's the story is about them, then make it about them. But you don't have to bring kids into it. And I agree with Carlson in the sense that it's absolutely and entirely wrong to have anyone try to get involved in hurting a family. Now, let's move forward. Tucker Carlson made this statement as a gaslight. He is using his pulpit, which is substantial, as little more than the bright, shiny thing. Look over here. Look over here. If I had a set of keys, I'd do it for you. Because that's what this is. First of all, the story and his allegations have absolutely no merit to the people that I've spoken to who know the internal workings of the New York Times and also of basic journalistic ethics and tenets. It has no fact to it whatsoever. The newspaper, from what I have been able to glean, was not seeking to print his address. They were not looking to print pictures of his home. They were not looking to out where he lives. They were not looking to bring these shadowy, closet-like Antifa people around his home and have them hurt anybody. That's a lie. In everything that I have been able to look at and see and know from my own experience, it's a lie. So then why did Carlson make this statement? Well, first of all, he's right about one thing. We don't need any more narcissism in network news because, holy crap, we've got enough of that at every level of the media these days. Certainly on Fox, let's be real sure about it, with Hannity and Ingram, but it also goes to others. Chris Hayes on MSNBC, many of the others. It's all about the narcissism in many ways, not necessarily the story, but that's beside the point. This was about making sure that all the attention on Tucker Carlson was not on the real news. It is a tactic that not just politicians use. It is a tactic that smart businessmen use, that lawyers use. It is a tactic that people use when something is happening with an individual and they don't want you to pay attention to it. Used an awful lot by our president because Donald Trump is a master at it. Kayleigh McEnany did it again today at a press conference where she was asked a very specific, hard question. She came back, bumbled through the answer, and then said, "While I'm here, let me say something nice about Ivanka Trump." She completely changed the subject. Shiny little object. Look over here. It's a magician's trick in many ways. Look over here. As I'm doing the trick over here, you should be looking over here, but I'm going to basically make sure that your attention is somewhere else. Carlson doesn't want anybody talking about the fact that he's in tight trouble right now because broke on Monday, the 20th. This is the headline from Deadline. You could read it just about any place because it has made news in a lot of different outlets, but Deadline is the Hollywood paper, which basically covers all of entertainment. The headline, Fox News, Ed Henry, Sean Hannity, and Tucker Carlson sued in sex trafficking, sexual harassment, and retaliation suit. Tucker does not want you to be talking about this because he certainly won't be, and he wants the attention deflected from him. As I read for those listening on the podcast, from the pages of Deadline, July 20. As described in detail herein, Fox News continues to protect and reward perpetrators of sexual harassment and refuses to take accountability for putting such persons in positions of power from which they can subject women to sexual misconduct, sexual assault, and in the case of Ms. Eckhart, rape. The injunction and widespread damages seeking suit states, quote, some of the names in leadership may have changed since Roger Ailes' regime, but Fox News' institutional apathy towards sexual misconduct has not, unquote. Fox's response, which is only fair that we make sure that we give them the response. Quote, based on the findings of a comprehensive independent investigation conducted by an outside law firm, including interviews with numerous eyewitnesses, we have determined that all of Kathy Areu's claims against Fox News, including its management as well as its hosts, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Howard Kurtz, and its contributor, Gianno Caldwell, are false, patently frivolous, and utterly devoid of any merit, unquote, said a Fox News spokesperson on Monday of the lawsuit, which also names Media Buzz host Kurtz as a defendant. In this age and in this time, it is important for people of power to make sure that they are seen as benign, that they are seen as good, that they are seen as doing things correctly. These are allegations. These are not crimes. These are not findings, if you will. This will have to be adjudicated in a court of law, and there will be an investigation. Many times you have to ask yourself, will the investigation be fair, and will it actually find out the truth? We don't know. But this is the beginning. But don't you find it odd? I guess I do. Maybe it's just one of those things where, for whatever reason, I force myself to ask questions. Don't you find it odd that on the day the lawsuit comes out, Tucker Carlson is going after the New York Times and claiming that the New York Times is going after he and his family. And he is seeking to take the attention away from the much more serious. And I say that because I don't believe a word of what he said, Carlson. The New York Times wouldn't print somebody's address. They haven't. They're not going to show pictures of a house. They're not going to show pictures of children. But the issue is Tucker Carlson is involved in a lawsuit right now regarding sexual harassment and rape. Use the word. Ed Henry has been charged with rape. And oh yeah, let's make sure we use the word charged and alleged because nothing has been proven. And Carlson is in there as well. Tucker Carlson is also part of a machine that perhaps has him running for office one day. There's even some discussion that come November, Carlson may wind up in a very important position in a second Trump administration if that happens. And there are those considering that he may already be part of the power base that is helping Donald Trump through a very difficult summer where his polls have plummeted. They have. They're not good. So the New York Times has reporters involved in the entire story looking at what Tucker Carlson may be involved in, what his role is, and how he is working with the president. Nothing wrong with that. This is part of journalism. This is indeed the part of journalism that is important. Finding the facts, ferreting out the truth, looking for the stories. And I take a lot of heat from people because they go, well, Ed, you must be nothing more than a libtard because you love the New York Times. Hey, I got news for you. Every single day I read the Times, the LA Times, the Boston Globe, the Miami Herald, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Chicago Tribune, and I bounce, and I watch, stunningly enough, believe this, I watch Fox in the morning. I turn to Fox in the morning, I turn to Good Morning America, I turn to MSNBC, I watch CNN. I get them all. You know why? Because I'm looking for a balanced effect on the news. MSNBC is completely left in what they do, without a question, and Fox is completely right, without question. So I look to balance it out. And by looking at all of these outlets, I find a balance. Why? Because I'm intelligent and I seek the truth. I seek the facts. What you should be doing. What every American should be doing. Whether it comes down to the anthem whether it comes down to what's happening in football, whether it comes down to what Tucker Carlson says is an effort to destroy his family and his children. Look for the truth. Look for the facts. They are out there. But don't believe for a minute that the New York Times was out there having somebody going to take pictures and putting Tucker Carlson's address in the papers. It's a lie. It wasn't going to happen. Tucker Carlson lied. He did it because it's the shiny thing. He doesn't want you or anybody else to pay attention to the lawsuit that is now coming right down on the head of Fox that has a lot of issues internally, not just with their talent, but with their producers, their writers, and others. And Fox is going to have to pay for it. And if people are innocent, let's say this. If people are innocent, if Carlson, if Hannity, if Ed Henry, if the others are innocent, damn it, put it front page. Put it out there. Make sure that everybody knows they're innocent. Every news outlet needs to do it. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, whatever it is. Make sure you tell people that they are innocent of these charges, if indeed they are. But if they're not, hold them to the scorn that they deserve and that they have brought upon themselves. Because if indeed these charges are true, nobody forced them to do anything. It is a power-hungry world that we live in right now. The media is a power-hungry business where people will screw with lives, they will destroy lives, they will beat lives into the ground, where management will find people that they can work for almost nothing, and they will make certain that they don't have a career. Used to be the other way around. Now, unfortunately, in many places, it is that way of basically taking advantage of the employees. And don't get me wrong. There's a lot of places out there. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you right now, CBS is one of the great upfront companies that I've ever worked with and for over the years. Very above board, wonderful people. And they're very attuned to what society brings and what society needs. NBC News, NBC, not MSNBC, the cable channel, NBC News. Very upfront in what they do and very meaningful, and they care for their people. But not every place does it. Carlson wants to make sure that you're not thinking of him in a negative light, so he makes unfounded allegations. The New York Times, and by the way, if you do subscribe to the Times, as I did today, go to the Times website, search out Tucker Carlson. You won't find any response from the Times. They're not in this gotcha game. They're journalists. They're looking for the facts. And I hope that when the facts come out, however it lays, whatever happens, that everybody reports it right. But stop falling for the nonsense. Tucker, be better than this. Can't you? Can't you stop with the nonsense and the bovine excrement being dropped? Probably not. Because quite frankly, it's what makes for big ratings. And in the end, that's all that counts. Don't forget, tomorrow Larry Bluestein joins us. We'll talk high school sports and a whole lot more. Thursday, Randy Gordon joins us. The commish will be here. We'll talk boxing and a whole lot more. Friday, Joe Casal, the smartest man in the room, is here. We'll definitely get in some trouble. I have no doubt about that whatsoever, because every time I do a show with Joe, a lot of people watch because they pretty much want to find out what Joe has got to say and the kind of arguments that we get into. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for being here on the Facebook live feed, the YouTube live feed. Don't forget, every show is posted to YouTube where you can go back and watch the entire show. Segments are there as well. And please, go to our YouTube page, subscribe to the page, download the videos. We'll let you know when they're coming. And go to our audio podcasts. We're on 9 major platforms, all the major platforms. Please, or platforms, not platforms. Platforms. All the major platforms. Please subscribe. Please download. We look to see you there. Listen, watch, be part of everything that we do. And just be safe. That's all it is. And hey, how about this? Learn who your neighbors are. Treat everybody nicely. It's not a way to end the day. I'm Ed Berliner. Rock on, true believers. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, see ya. Be sure to stay connected on social media with questions, comments, conundrums, you name it. It's at Berliner Speaks on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. A great place to talk business. and learn a lot more about what we do is simply check us out on LinkedIn. Just go there and search out Ed Berliner. A reminder that every single episode of The Man in the Arena is uploaded to YouTube. Just go to welcometothearena.com, or if you're on YouTube, search out Ed Berliner Media. If you would prefer to listen to The Man in the Arena, every episode is available for download on all the major audio podcast platforms. The Man in the Arena is produced by Entourage Management, LLC, and Entourage Media.